Hi, I'm Brigham Larson with Brigham Larson Pianos. The purpose of this video is to talk cosmetics. There are lots of things that we can talk about with cosmetics, but we're just going to talk about really three items, three different comparisons. But knowing how I usually make these videos, I'll probably hit on a lot more. But okay, so the first one is open pore finish versus closed pore finish. So this generally applies to older wood pianos, as opposed to a piano like this where you don't see the wood grain. I'm talking about a piano like this where you do see the wood grain. This is an 1885 Kanabi, and this is what is referred to as a closed pore finish. When I feel it, it feels like glass. I mean, or it feels, at very least like a plastic coating, and that is called a closed pore finish. And that's a higher end finish that it takes. It's about double the effort, so it's generally, if not double the price to get a nice finish like this. It's generally quite a bit more expensive. Okay. Let me show you a closed pore finish. These finishes can also they can look very nice. They can be fairly durable as well, especially if they've got a number of coats of sanding sealer and lacquer. But these would be this finish here, for example, would be an example of an open pore finish. It does feel fairly smooth, but it's not like that plastic kind of glass coating that I feel on the other one. So that applies to older pianos. Something that you see on pianos that have not been refinished would be a lot of times you'll see cracking, crackling. People will say that it looks kind of like alligator skin, or checking. That's where the lacquer over the years, or the shellac, has essentially broken up, and that detracts from the appeal and the value of the piano. Okay, lots more that we could talk about on that, but let's move on to polyester and lacquer. Modern pianos are, especially these black ones, they are coated in polyester. So yes, that is, I am saying that correctly. It's polyester, like clothing material, but it's a different version where it's sprayed on and then polished and buffed to this really high polish mirror shine that you can get from these pianos. So you do not see grain in a lot of these black pianos. It's totally filled in and closed over. A lot of times on brand new pianos, it'll actually be like an MDF underneath. There's not even a veneer underneath. That's not the point. That's not the intention in the manufacturer. Or you'll get a piano like this where there is a grain. This is a veneer underneath, but you have polyester that is sprayed over top, and that's the clear coat. And it's almost like a layer, I don't know, maybe about the thickness of a business card or something, maybe even a little thicker, that is over that veneer, that is that sprayable polyester. Okay, then let me show you a lacquer finish. Lacquer finishes are more traditional. So like this piano, I rebuilt this piano over the course of about a year. And this is a beautiful, beautiful finish, but this is not a polyester finish. This is a lacquer finish. Also fairly durable. Frankly, it's not as durable as the polyester, but it's beautiful. It has a look of its own. This is kind of a rubbed finish, and yeah, a lot of people like, especially on older pianos, the priority is more kind of, I guess, tradition, going for what has been done. The polyester, I'm not sure exactly when it started. I would say 1960s. I'm fairly confident in that. So prior to 1960, it's going to all be lacquer. Okay, then the final cosmetic issue that we'll talk about is it really mostly applies to used pianos or refurbished pianos. It would be the keys and the brass hardware, or nickel hardware. So what you want to look for in a nice key job, well, let me say first, the reason it doesn't really apply to new or newer pianos is because they should be perfect. That's on a new piano, your cosmetics, your key job, and the hardware, it should be impeccable. But on a used piano, even 10 years old, 20 years old, you're going to start to see some wear and tear, and that's something that you're going to want to pay attention to if cosmetics are important to you. Okay, let me tell you about the benchmarks of a good key top job when keys have been redone. What you're looking for is you want, when you kind of change the angle, you should be able to see, as light reflects off of these white keys, you should be able to see that it's scratch free. It's been buffed out to a high shine. You should also see that on the edges they're all straight. There's no curve anywhere here or here where it borders the sharp. This notch here where it intersects with the black key, that should be a right angle. Furthermore, all of the notches, you should be able to sight down them and you should see a straight line. Those notches shouldn't be some here, and then kind of all over the place. But if it's well done, it'll just be a nice straight line. And the sharps are something that also you ought to pay attention to. The sharps should be consistent. They should be relatively scratch-free. Again, for a replacement job, that's something that you ought to pay attention to. Lots of different materials have been used. If you're going even older, or a piano that hasn't been recovered, like all of these pianos have new keys on, there'll be ivory, which of course is legal now. And a lot of times what will happen is this lip will be chipped, or there'll be sometimes it'll be filed off, which is, in my opinion, just ruins it. There'll be a seam here, so you want to see what kind of condition is that seam in, overall condition of the ivory. It's fairly uncommon now to find a keyboard where the ivory is really in good shape. That's fairly uncommon. But if you do find one, a competent technician or a competent shop can rebuild the ivory, filling in those chips and buffing up the ivory, getting all the grease from decades of use, the oil from people's fingers out of the ivory and off the sides of the keys as well. Okay, then the final, well, actually I'll mention one more thing, is the decal. That's really kind of a peripheral kind of thing. Decal ought to be, in my opinion, it ought to be true to the period of the manufacturing date of the piano, and it ought to be well done. Okay, then this is the final thing. Brass hardware such as the pedals, the scutcheon here, the lock, these hinges, the knobs, this hinge here, this strike plate that corresponds with the lock there, those kinds of brass hardware pieces, they ought to be bright and shiny and relatively corrosion free for a really nice, clean cosmetic job. A lot of times, here's an example of a really pretty, well, it's like all three of these. This one here, it has this trim piece here, just a cosmetic thing, and then different styles of pedals over here. All of these have been replated, a lot of times the plating will have worn off, and if they're not replated to look like this, they'll be kind of dingy and often corroded and rusty. So those are the main components. Again, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, there's so much more that goes into cosmetics, but those are kind of the big ones. The finish, are we talking polyester? Are we talking lacquer? Are we talking open pore, closed pore finish? The keys, and then the brass hardware, the decal, all of that goes into the I guess aesthetic appeal of the piano. Thanks for watching.